Just been so busy talking.
That's better.
Welcome again. Roll call, please, Robin.
Commissioner Hensick. Chair Stevens.
Present.
Commissioner Slaughter. Present. Commissioner Hamlin is not with us. Secretary Broughton is not with us. Vice Chair Potter.
Present.
Commissioner Quartermack.
Here.
Council Member Liaison Marshall.
Present.
Council Member Rambo is not with us. HPC Advisor Scott. And
Present.
Commissioner Radford.
Present.
Here.
Form.
Thank you very much. As I said, it's an exciting time. Every meeting is an exciting meeting. We just never seem to be lacking for possibilities for doing some historic preservation here in Wildwood. So I think we need to move along now to really get us started with the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. So if you'll please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Has anyone found anything that needs to be corrected or added to the minutes of our June meeting that were given out with this packet? Well, hearing none, we will approve them by general consent. And now we'll be going into a special presentation. It's a bittersweet presentation, the way I look at it. Bitter that Jim is no longer officially with us, even though he's sitting right there. But sweet that he is sitting right there. We're glad you're here to be with us one last time, kind of semi-officially. You've served extremely well in your 2 years on the commission, and we could always count on you sharing ideas for whatever we were working on. Thanks too for your efforts in promoting our History of Wildwood book last fall by wearing the sandwich board and participating in the Celebrate Wildwood Parade. It was a challenge, I know, as I remember. But we'll miss your contagious smile and know that you've termed out, but you're still part of us in our hearts. So I believe there is another part of the presentation. Oh, I know where they is too.
Hi, my name is Jim Rubis. I'm on the Wildwood Historic Preservation Commission, and today, another beautiful day in Wildwood, and we're standing in front of one of the best-known landmarks on the Route 66 Manchester Road corridor, Larry's Tavern. If you're interested, it's located at 16833 Manchester Road on the historic Route 66. Thank you.
Streaming to YouTube. Yeah. Is it copyrighted music? It shouldn't be. It's part of the, like, I used to. Oh, then it should be. Yeah. Millennial powers for good.
833 Manchester Road on the historic Route 66. Thank you.
I'll say.
Speak for yourself.
Well, while we're doing this, I just want to, yeah, Jim, I really have appreciated working with you these years. It's really been a joy. So miss you here. So enjoy yourself. You don't have to come to all the meetings, but we're expecting to see you.
It'll be the end of my. Today's the first day of the semester.
Yeah. I'm just going to have to pretend there's music behind these.
Yeah, I'm saying.
I would find a random YouTube. Or-
I'll say. That was a fun day.
I saw that stuff.
Yeah, he was.
You look, you got a mask on.
Oh, that was during COVID. Yeah. A little warm that day, wasn't it?
Yay.
Oh.
There's a zero.
Hmm. Right.
Last Thursday of the month.
So it's not goodbye, Jim. You realize that. It's so long, see you later. But never goodbye.
Chair Stevens, I did position our special presentation right before public comment. So if Mr. Rubis would like to come up and have a conversation with us.
You know, I can remember when Mayor Boland called me and asked me if I would like to serve on the Historic Preservation Commission. And I had no idea what the Historic Preservation Commission was. But am I glad I said yes? I've learned more, I think, about the city, about the area, about our heritage and everything by being on this commission. And when I tell people, you know, stories that we get as being on the commission, you know, people have no idea what. And I think we find that out when we had the tents at the concerts and at the Celebrate Wildwood. People go, what's the Historic Preservation Commission? And I think we've really kind of raised the whole idea of historic preservation in Wildwood. And now that we're getting an influx of, the homes that are being built, new people coming into the area, I think it's important that we continue down the path that we started, and so that we can spread the word of what they really have here, what we really have. And it all has to do with, I think, our basic tenet of just people. We are a city of people. We have homes, we have buildings, we have all kinds of things, but basically we have people. People is the history of this area. So I encourage you to, I don't have to encourage you to, keep up the good work, and I will be following it because it's whet my interest. And as I serve on the planning and zoning board, a lot of it comes back to this and how we want to make this city be. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, is there any public comment after him?
Chair Stevens, I see just one attendee online. Kathy, if you would like to make comment at this time, please use the raise hand feature. Chair Stevens, I do not see a raised.
Okay. Thank you very much. News and updates from the Wildwood Historical Society.
Well, I guess our only real news was not quite 2 weeks ago. We hosted, there's a group called the St. Louis Historic Site Meetup Group. And from talking to the lady that was in charge of the tour, they must be like 300 or 400 members. But we had probably 40 people. Jill Von Ruben gave them like an hour tour of the museum. And then me and a couple of the other gals, we served them lunch. Normally they go out someplace afterwards for lunch, and we said, no, we would provide lunch. A lot of the people that were out there, either it had been years and years since they had been to Wildwood, or they had never been to Wildwood. Some of the people who were there were from Illinois. It was really interesting talking to them, and they were just really impressed.
Well, good.
I don't know why. They thought our lunch was good too.
Certain it was.
Anything for a free meal, right?
Right.
And that's about it. Yeah.
Yes, Robin.
I'd just like to note that I'm a member of that meetup group, and it's a truly fantastic group. If you want to have some experiences and some hidden gems throughout this city and area, certainly I encourage you to go check out their calendar because they're always doing something. I've been into some historic churches and attended their service with this group. We always go out for food afterwards. But if you're interested in the history of this area, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and for us, it was kind of nice because they just asked for a donation. So at least we made over $300.
Wow.
And we're always looking for fundraisers.
Okay. I guess that takes us into our old business with Mr. Scott's home.
Right, Madam Chair, members of this commission, as you may recall from our last meeting, the department presented to you an information and recommendation report in regards to the commission's, in regards to Mr. Scott's nomination of his historic home here in Wildwood, the Hyman Scott House. This month, we're bringing back to you the Historic Preservation Commission's recommendation report with recommendation to Wildwood City Council. With your endorsement of the report as presented to you tonight, we will forward that as the official communication of this commission to City Council at its August meeting. where a public hearing will again be held regarding this historic landmark nomination to the Wildwood Historic Register. So at this time, I would request an action from this commission in regards to adopting this official report.
Okay, so we are wanting to have a motion so that we can go into some more discussion.
I so move.
It's been moved, seconded by Ashley, that we approve this presentation. It's quite lengthy, but wonderful. Thank you for all of your work. Are there any questions or comments from anyone on this? Hearing none, I would like to call for a vote on the motion. Commissioner Boer, your vote, please. And Commissioner Ragherman? Thank you. What is the vote of the commission, other commission members? Please raise your right hand. Okay. It has passed.
Thank you.
And the historic building inventory has been put off until next month. As then the Essen Log Cabin.
We'll address that in the work program update.
Okay. So turn a few more pages here. The Fortner Park update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the commission, the Department of Planning, along with the Planning and Parks Committee of City Council, have been working very diligently to complete the demolition of the home at Fortner Park. The demolition wasn't anticipated originally when the property was donated, but the donation was contested by a distant relative of Ms. Yost, the owner of the property and the donator to the city. And it took approximately 18 months to work its way through probate and some settlement negotiations. And during that time, the pressure equipment for the water well fractured and it had been spewing water for we don't know how long. But when we did get the key to the property, so to speak, in the home, mold had taken over. So that's the rationale for the demolition. Demolition work is scheduled to begin first part of August. More importantly, though, Ms. Yost was very specific in what she wanted the property to be used for. And so as part of that, the department, along with the Planning and Parks Committee, had discussed creating a task force to basically develop a master plan for the property, respectful of Mrs. Yost's wishes and restrictions, as well as recognizing its location and its best use. That task force never seemed to get traction, despite the efforts of many of the city council members. So at this past Monday night's Planning and Parks Committee meeting, the decision was made to more internally develop the master plan and use resources that are readily available to the city, one of which is our Historic Preservation Commission. So as we formulate this next step, I just wanted to advise you that we're hoping to have at least 2 of you participate in those regular meetings on the development of the master plan. I want to assure commission members that the development of the master plan will have a public input component. It will generally come now probably midway to 2/3 of the way through the discussions and get feedback about the proposals, the draft. And then as we move forward to a final master plan decision, then take it back out. We intend to use our website, social media, and many of the tools we used when we did the Village Green Phase 1 discussion, its master plan, and hopefully gain, if not a small percentage of what we received through that process, almost equal. And as I think I may have mentioned in the past, when we did the Village Green Master Plan for Phase 1 as well, we got over 1,000 participants, much more than we get in our traditional on-site meetings or in-person meetings. So we're very hopeful that that'll be the same case here. We'll get a good turnout. So from the perspective of the department to the commission, the demolition is scheduled for the beginning part of August. It'll be the dwelling only. None of the other structures will be disturbed. So those are the ones that have the history associated with it. And then in a very short period of time, we'll be asking the chair and others to help us make a selection of a couple of you to serve on what we're going to call our in-house group to basically develop that master plan for Portner Park. Mr. Marshall's been integral in that. If he'd like to add anything at this time, I'd certainly yield voting.
Well, I think you did a great job.
Thanks. If there are any questions, Madam Chair, Mrs. Keefe and I will do our best to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Yes.
What is? Slash.
Well, if we were doing the task force, the hope was to meet once a month. It takes about a couple of weeks to turn around things from meetings that we have with our different volunteer groups. And I didn't want to lose momentum. And also out in the distant, not too distant future, we're coming on our 10-year required update of the master plan. And that process takes a little over a year. So the hope was, I think on the Planning and Parks Committee, we could maybe tie this up by the end of this year, at least have something on paper and then kind of do the best we can as we move forward with the master plan. And then, as you know, the commission will be working on its historic preservation plan here in the near future as well. So there's just a lot going on and we're trying to juggle that. So in terms of commitment, I would say worst case, once a month. Certainly as we get closer to that discussion, which will probably be at the next meeting in August for the commission members. Madam Chair, we have at least one member that's noted an interest.
It's good to have someone interested right off the bat, right?
Yeah, that's great. That's great stuff.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments for Joe?
Would those be during the day, Joe?
Actually, if I think we're going to be effective, it will probably be late afternoon or early evening. That was the intent with the task force that we had talked about originally.
Okay. Yeah, be interested in doing it, but it depends on time of day.
Well, if we have 2 or 3 of the commission members that want to participate, I think we should tailor it to those volunteers best as possible, and then our city council members that'll be working with it as well.
Okay.
And it seems like around 5:30, 6 o'clock is becoming the sweet spot. So I don't know how that works for your schedule. But if 6 works, that's what I would probably argue for with our Planning and Parks Committee members.
Yeah, may work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, anything else on this?
Thanks again.
Okay, and number 5 is the African American History Project. Robin.
Madam Chair, members of this commission, we've been discussing for the past many months a proposal to create an African American history trail on the Monarch Chesterfield Levee Trail in the northern part of Wildwood. That proposal made its way from this commission to the Planning and Parks Committee and then to City Council. And we officially have a green light to proceed with the steps that were outlined in previous reports. So tonight I have several updates for you regarding those proposed next steps. So our first next step was to approach potential partners and hold stakeholder meetings with engagement to continue throughout all of the phases. Well, we figured a first step was one, to notify our fellow city partner, the city of Chesterfield. So we've had a conversation, or at least our city administrator has had a conversation with their city administrator, and we have drafted a letter for them to take through their own process as well, asking them to be a partner in this effort. So that letter is included in this packet. Secondly, we have contacted Pastor Abernathy of the Westland Acres Union Baptist Church. And while we have not yet received a response back from him, we are working to set up that meeting with Union Baptist Church as a first step before we go into some larger engagement efforts, because we do think that's critical. Secondly, we spoke of researching and nominating identified sites to various designation programs, particularly the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom program. And that specifically we started talking about in reference to Archer Alexander's story. The city has sent letters to the property owner of the sites that we believe is associated with Archer Alexander's crossing across the Missouri River to freedom. And we're waiting to hear a response from that letter, whether they consent for us to proceed with a research grant application to the National Park Service for that program. At the same time, we've been having discussions with our national park representative about potential freedom seekers in our United States colored troops research. And so we heard several different takes and perspectives on who might be considered a freedom seeker. And just so you know, a freedom seeker, as defined for United States colored troops, is men who chose to enlist without their owner's consent. So if their owner gave them consent, then they are not considered a freedom seeker. But if they enlisted and presented themselves without their owner's consent or without their owner present, then they are. Well, it has since been determined that there is a strong argument that Elijah Madison and Stapleton Madison are both freedom seekers enlisted without owner consent. And so Chair Stevens, Director Vunich, myself, our research consultant, Ellen Reichert, and Doris Keepan-Franke are having a meeting next month to discuss this further, and there will likely be a research grant associated with that nomination as well. We're thinking to tie it to the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church and Cemetery property. And so the city has drafted a letter to that property owner as well, and we're hoping to set a meeting to discuss both that nomination and other possibilities associated with preserving that property and that cemetery. So I think that brings you up to speed with most of my updates. We are recommending that before moving forward with our larger community and stakeholder engagements, that we do set that meeting first with Union Baptist Church and get a little further ahead with some of these nominations as well. The deadline for that application is August 19th, and we're waiting on those consent letters. If you have any questions at this time, we are available to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions? I've never heard this group so quiet.
Well, hopefully I explained that clearly. Okay, wonderful. So we are moving ahead.
Very good. This is going to be an exciting project. The debriefing from the June concert tent.
I'll just stay on up here. Madam Chair, members of this commission, we did have another history tent at our last, not our last music main. We actually took a break in July, but we did have a history tent in June. And since we haven't met since then, I will give you the debrief of that now. I will say it wasn't quite as successful as our first history tent. But that could be attributed to the fact that we did not have a raffle associated with this one. Also, we were positioned closer to the stage this time. Last time the stage was on the other side of the field from us. This time it was right next to us. And so it was a little bit harder to do the history type of engagement with people because we could barely hear each other. That said, we had 8 volunteers and myself show up, and we had 60 people participate in the Wildwood Historic Communities activity. So I still think it was a strong showing. It was about half of people who participated attended the event from outside of Wildwood. Half were in the historic Grover area as we defined via that activity. We did have 5 participants from historic Orville, 2 from the historic Glencoe area, and then we did have 1 participant each from historic Kelp, historic Hollow, historic Fox Creek area, historic Pond, and historic Westland Acres area. So we had some representation, I think. Commissioner Rag Herman certainly made the event successful. He went out during the band's break and distributed flyers for our historic preservation plan effort to about 75% of the audience. So we got the word out, which was the goal. $100 in donations were collected for the Essen Log Cabin, even though we specifically weren't asking for donations, but people came up and offered us money, so we took it. We did sell a history book. We might have sold several more, but unfortunately there was a bit of a dysfunction. And we did sell a couple Route 66 t-shirts. And of course, we distributed many points of interest maps, historic community word searches, and Route 66 keychains, and historic preservation plan magnets. So overall, I'd say it was another successful night. And we're looking forward to the back to school party, which I will talk to you about in another few agenda items. At this time, if you have any feedback to offer, the department would certainly welcome it as we continue to plan future history tenting events.
I think it's been important that each one has been a little bit different. So that people didn't say, oh, they're here again with that. Because that's the perception that comes a lot of times. And so with each one, and then with the back to school, and that we'll talk about in a little bit, being totally different. I think this is really getting people's attention, and that's what we want.
I will say that with the historic communities mapping activity, I do feel like it opened up dialogue with a few of the residents who participated. For instance, Diane Schoenfeld with Historic Bethel Church. She came by the tent and participated in that activity, and she and her husband live in the Fox Creek area. But she was like, wait a minute, the Wild Horse Valley Association has a sign coming into our neighborhood. And it's apparently a historic sign. It's associated with the history of the Wild Horse Valley Association. And so now she's going to take me on a tour of that area so we can go look at the sign. She's going to present some research regarding it. And that's, something that we can potentially use in future points of interest maps or wherever we feel is appropriate. So I do think that activity kind of opened itself up to some interesting conversations that will help us in our work.
Yeah, I think I agree with having the activities where people are involved and getting more familiar with where they lie and what their relationship is in the history of the city is a good idea. And the giveaways is always a good one.
Yeah.
Maybe we can find another attendance prize to give away this time.
Yeah. Yes, Jim had a conversation with a nurse at St. Luke's. He was a temporary resident there for a while. And she lives on Main Street. And she said, but I don't understand. For a while, our address was Grover, and now they're telling us it's Wildwood. And she had no idea about the 11 communities. So he educated her a bit on that. And so I get a phone call. You got any of those point of interest maps? I said, yes. He said, bring them along. And do you, those little circles with the different communities, do you have a Grover one? He said, Yeah, we do, because technically that's where we are. Well, we can forego ours and you bring it to and give it to her. So she was just ecstatic to learn a little bit more about it. And the points of interest map, she was just blown away. So it's, you know, the more we get those out there, the more people are into what we're doing.
One thing I've also noticed is we have a lot of youth participation whenever we bring out the maps, points of interest map, and also this latest historic community mapping activity. I noticed a lot of interest from young people,
Mhm.
and hopefully they go home and they're like, "Did you know we live in historic Grover?" Hopefully, but it's just something I observed.
And Chair,
Yeah.
just an overall observation, given the temperature at the June concert, I think that played a role as well.
Yeah.
The overall attendance at the concert was probably the lowest of the three we held. Last Friday, it was a beautiful night. People had actually long sleeves on, and the attendance was probably one of our largest ever.
Wow. Yeah, I had a
We
friend who
missed an
approached me
opportunity.
before the concert. Are you gonna have your tent there again? I said, no, we're not gonna do it this month. Really? How come? So. I look forward to it. So that's great. Anything more on the June? Yes, Ed.
Just a thought, and you guys are probably already doing it, but when you do get people that are really interested in what you're talking about, do we have any way to have them sign up so that we have them on a targeted list that when you're looking for more volunteers or people that want to help with any of the community input sessions, that those people kind of roll right back up and we invite them and keep them involved in the bigger project?
I think that's a terrific idea. We've done it in the past with Route 66 revitalization efforts. And so I had an email list sign up for that. Unfortunately, I wasn't on the ball with our historic mapping activity, though I did know the few participants who were particularly interested and I have their contact information. So that was good.
And some of
But
them
I
have the
will do
same-
that in the future. We'll always have a list. That's a good idea.
Thank you. Okay. So now to the work program update.
Right.
We don't want you to have to sit down and get back.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, we do have a few updates for you this evening. However, it looks like the first update I'm coming to is something that I'm going to direct to Director Vunich.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Madam Chair and members of the commission, this past Tuesday night, the department presented the grant program for Route 66 to the Economic Development Committee of City Council. Our standing committees are 8 of the 16 council members. The members of the Economic Development Committee were crucial in the opinion of the department to a successful grant program and support at the overall city council. Presentation was done by Tom Lee, our city administrator, and myself. And the response from the Economic Development Committee was overwhelmingly in support. In fact, as the department had hoped, they see it as a tool to drive business development and revitalization in 2 of our core commercial centers, that being Grover and Pond. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee authorized us to proceed forward with the expenditure of resources, funds, and time to create the framework for that grant program. Ms. Keefe noted before tonight's meeting, part of the conversation focused on how much should we put toward the grant program in its initial year. The department had suggested $25,000, taking a conservative approach. And several of the members of the committee noted that may not be enough. Let's think about that. So again, I think it was a very positive step. And hereafter, we'll go to city council for a more rigorous discussion, but we have at least 7 of the 16 members saying that we need to proceed. So if there are any questions regarding that particular meeting or the grant program that Ms. Keefe's done a great deal of research on, both of us are available to answer them. you.
All right, I'll continue these updates. I had Chair Stevens skip over the Essen Log Cabin item just because we didn't have any real updates for you, but I will touch on it. Pattern Ives is finalizing our specifications manual document. And they are also drafting a materials list as requested by Councilmember Rambo, who has many downed trees on his property and would love to potentially make some donations of material to the city. So both of those items are currently being drafted and we're making headway, but they're not quite ready to be presented to you this evening.
Chair Stevens, I had a question.
Yes.
Is there any benefit in making that materials list moderately public? I mean, obviously we know that Dr. Rambo has a lot of down trees, but there's, depending what the materials list is, I think there could be a lot of people in Wildwood who would love to contribute, not just because they might have materials, but how cool to say there's a little piece of my land on it. Just wondering if the materials list potentially is long enough though to be advantageous to share it publicly.
Well, I have not seen it myself, but I would probably punt that question to Director Vunich as far as how public we could make it.
It's a very interesting observation, and certainly I think Ms. Keefe and I will need to kind of consider it. As you know, from the architectural drawings, we're not as in bad a shape relative to the timbers, the things that obviously make the cabin. And with the decision to go with the shake roof and the pour in place foundation with the rock we have, we're not as in bad a shape as one might think. And so, as I say, I'd like to get that list of materials from Ms. Quigley, see where we are, and then maybe we can be back to you in August with a better answer, or at least a better answer from me.
Yeah, and then my only other thought was when we get to once it's constructed and beautiful and ready to have historically accurate decor on the inside, just also wondering if there's an opportunity to engage the public. Just again, trying to consistently think about our efforts to reach out to the general public.
There, I think, is the real benefit of engaging the community. The city has nothing in terms of how best to make the interior of the cabin consistent and worthy of the exterior of the cabin, so to speak. So I think that'll be we should do something like that.
Yes, Steve.
Okay. No, I think important thing is to get donations of the furnishings for the inside the cabinet. We may be stealing some donations that would have been given to the Historical Society, but I think they might be.
We've got lots of.
They've got lots of stuff there. So I think that would be good. And then I guess the other question is, have you identified or any prospective bidders for this that you've qualified or recommended? And I just wonder if there was discussion about Mr. Francis from the county historical group over at Fouts Park.
Yes, Mr. Scott, we've had a few of those discussions already regarding potential bidders, and Mr. Francis certainly has been identified, though we're still uncertain what his role would be given his current position with the county. We've also received some interest from specific companies, and unfortunately, I can't think of the name of one off the top of my head unless Director Vunich has it.
Well, there's Tim Kilby, who retired but has been integral in the work that Carol Quigley's been doing for the city and the Essen Log Cabin, country gentleman. And then there's Workhorse Construction that was a mentor under Tim Kilby when they were doing some restorations. Mr. Francis, who is an employee of St. Louis County, but I would assume be able to do this as a separate component. And then Bombshell Construction, which is actually doing phase one of the Village Green, has stated their intent to bid on the project. So at least we have four. And then we'll use the digital plan house and put it out for the general region and elsewhere. And then we always put it on our website and advertise in a paper on daily circulation.
And I do think we have one additional as well who's been reaching out to me. And again, I would have to double verify the name, but I can share it with the commission once I do. So I do think we have at least 5, it sounds like, identified.
That'd be great if they're all qualified and you get good bids from them. Very good.
Right, if that's all on that item, I do have additional updates for you. Dr. Michael Allen, you may have noticed we skipped over another item on the agenda this evening. Well, Dr. Michael Allen has accepted a position as a visiting professor of history at West Virginia University and is therefore making a big move, and the St. Louis area is suffering a bit of a loss. He is still working hard to complete our project, but he did ask for just a little bit of grace and will be presenting his final report to you in August via Zoom, presumably from West Virginia. So that's my update there. And I do believe that was my last update. Thank you. If you have any questions on those items or any of the items on our work program at this time, please do feel free to ask the department.
It looks like we could move forward to the new business section. The first item is the new Historic Preservation Fund application cycle.
Well, Madam Chair, members of this commission, as most of you are aware, since 2001, the city of Wildwood has been a certified local government with the state of Missouri. And this is essentially making us part of a local, state, federal partnership for historic preservation. However, we do have some commitments or requirements to maintain our certified local government status. And that is to maintain our commitment to enforce our historic preservation laws as they are currently written. We have responsibility for the review and approval of nominations of properties to the National Register of Historic Places. And we have eligibility to apply for funding through the State Historic Preservation Office. These are matching funds that are reserved for us as certified local governments. And that program is administered by the State Missouri Department of Natural Resources State Historic Preservation Office. So you may recall that we did, or we are assuming that we are receiving an award from the state for our historic preservation plan effort this year. That was last year's application, and it was successful. This year, we are recommending a different sort of application. And part of this recommendation is because we do believe that a well-trained commission is best able to serve its community in a meaningful way. But the other part of it is simply that there's just not a whole lot that we are currently doing that fits within their what is funded category. So training makes sense to us. So what the department is proposing is that for 2026, because we would know if we received the award in 2025, and these conferences are typically in the summer, the commission officers and its historic preservation planner be funded to attend the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions Forum. This year's conference is being held in West Palm Beach, Florida, just next week. I've attached the preliminary program to your packet so that you can flip through it and see what types of offerings are typically available at these conferences. But typically they have interactive conferences, traditional educational presentations, roundtable discussions, and even some educational tours of whatever place is hosting that conference. This year, there were 40 sessions and 14 tours being offered. And my pitch to you is that these types of conferences, while extremely valuable for the education piece alone, are also valuable in that you're able to network with professionals and commission members working all over the country in different contexts and settings, but on historic preservation. So they're experiencing similar problems and issues, and you can bounce ideas off of them. You can, ask for help, and just otherwise kind of build, an alliance. So it's a great opportunity to get out there and get a sense of a bigger picture, I guess, than the Wildwood community, because sometimes we're a bit siloed here. So if you would agree with us, I can submit an application to the State Historic Preservation Office. The pre-apps are due by August 16th. The final application is due December 6th. So we do have some time to go through various processes and get resolutions, et cetera. But we're estimating the total cost for 4 people to attend is probably around $10,000. We'll see in 2026 if it might be a little more expensive. But that's what we're estimating. And then the State Historic Preservation Office usually covers 60% of that if we're awarded the grant, and then the city would cover the other 40%, so $4,000 about. Tonight, the department is asking for 1, your consent to proceed with this pre-application with this recommendation, and 2, authorization for your chair to provide a letter of support for it. Thank you.
That's up to me. The commission. You too. Just from when I went to Kansas City last fall to accept the award with Robin, attending and that was a much smaller scale of things, but it was very interesting and opened a lot of eyes. And I think it would be wonderful.
I think so too. I had a quick question, just thinking, maybe getting ahead of myself, but thinking about projects that we have. So I know that sometimes getting, like, even just hoping for someone to build the Essen-Log cabinet takes a very specific type of contractor. So does this specific conference have like a trade show aspect where there would be like vendors who potentially provide resources to historical preservation committees, like researchers or things that you can engage with?
I think it's possible that element is part of it, because I've seen that component included in others. But I would have to follow up with the organization to be absolutely sure.
I feel like that feels just as valuable, honestly, having like a resource bank of people that we can engage with within the industry, but I'll motion.
A lot of times that I know, at least with the American Planning Association conferences, it is like that. We're out in the lobby as you're going into sessions, you'll have different professionals and organizations, and you'll learn a lot about their offerings at that time.
I make a motion that city.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? All right, Commissioner Boer, your vote, please. Commissioner Herman, your vote. Commission members, your vote. We may move forward. Okay. I always forget to ask for that little thing on some of our votes. So it just as I keep saying, our work is so exciting, and it just keeps building and building. It's really great. The back to school party history tent.
All right, Madam Chair, members of this commission. At its May meeting, you authorized us to proceed with a history tent at our back to school party concert. And at that time, it was discussed that we would orient that tent towards youth and families. And so we have been hard at work to that aim. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Commissioner Bohr to outline some of our proposed activities.
So to like appeal to a younger audience and families, we want to make it like a carnival-like atmosphere. So we have 5 activities so far planned out, and the first one is a zombie road beanbag toss. And basically it's like a big board that we're working to create that's going to resemble like zombie road, and we're going to have targets on it so kids can toss beanbags into it. And if successful, they'll receive a packet with like the history of Wildwood and then some flyers and a t-shirt. And then we're also going to have a Route 66 Hot Wheels racetrack, and this is going to be an 8-foot long like a racetrack that is supposed to roughly resemble Wildwood's Route 66 corridor. And basically for this, we're just going to have them side by side, and kids can just race cars down it and sort of play with, like, compete with one another. And we're working to make it like look more like the Route 66 and by adding the Route 66 landmarks to it. And so that's an example. And so then we have a log cabin building techniques, and this we're just gonna have Lincoln logs, and kids can just sort of try to build cabins or dog trot cabins, and we can explain more about the SM log cabin to them while they build them. And then we have this thing that we're trying to do. It's basically Planner Keefe has been looking for articles related to this area's history, and what we're trying to do is just sort of hand out these articles to people at the tent so they can just sort of read about these articles during different time periods to learn more about Wildwood's history. And finally, we have a word search activity, and this one it's a little different because it has pictures, so it can, appeal more to a younger audience.
So thank you to Chair Stevens for that one. All right, thank you so much. So if you are interested in getting a little crafty tomorrow, we're having a pizza party / crafting party in the community room from 11:30 to 3 p.m. We're going to be painting and collaging and whatever we end up doing to our Route 66 racetrack. And we'll also be building some log cabins to make sure we know how to instruct people in those techniques. So it should be a lot of fun. We will feed you. So if you'd like to join us, you're certainly welcome. Wear old clothes.
And do you have a crew set up for working the event?
Thank you for reminding me. So it looks like I do think I have a full crew for our back to school party event. Our 2 youth commissioners, Commissioner Quarternick, Vice Chair Bockert has committed. Thank you. I will be present. But if anybody, and our advisor Scott will be there. So if anybody else would like to join us, you are certainly welcome. It will be an all hands on deck type of event because we will have all these various activities and we'll need activity monitors to help direct. So I do think more people is good for this event. So if you'd like to volunteer, I'll certainly take you. Just reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
may, just as a note, the back to school party is our second most popular event in terms of attendance behind Celebrate Wildwood. And this year we have a lot of interest from vendors, school districts and others. So I expect this year, if weather cooperates, will be one of our biggest back to school parties ever.
That's wonderful. It's hard to believe it's that time already. Hey, find my agenda here. The Mary Cliff situation.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the commission, as you know, we paid a visit to the Mary Cliff residents on the campus of the Marinus Retreat Center in April. And since that time, there has been some infrequent communication with the province, which owns the property, and the Mary Cliff residents. Tentatively, we've scheduled a discussion between the attorneys and city personnel for next week. And hopefully that'll be the start of a long relationship that's successful at retaining the asset. Ms. Keefe was asked to edit my memo before it was made part of the packet for tonight's discussion. And she said it appeared that we were maybe tamping down expectations. And so in the memo, it does mention that there are a number of obstacles or hurdles relative to retaining Mary Cliff residents. And certainly those hurdles aren't insurmountable. I don't believe so. But I do want to note that from a standpoint of funding, the city will have limited resources if funding becomes a key component of any retention. There also is just, again, limited personnel. We are a staff of approximately 25. And from the perspective of historic preservation, there's probably only 3 or 4 of us. And as we go along, we don't have property or easement rights in association with the site. So there's really just a limited amount of things we can do, but certainly it doesn't necessarily preclude us from being successful. And that's where I'd like to emphasize. As noted, even if we have a willing partner and find potential solutions, there's a whole litany of things that relate to making the building usable from a public standpoint. The things that the Marinus province was struggling with in years past relative to the upgrade and restoration renovation of the facility were new requirements for accessibility, fire prevention, and et cetera. So just wanted to give you an update. We are about to make that first engagement, and hopefully that first engagement will set the tone for future ones. But there are just a number of obstacles, but I think this commission likes obstacles, so we'll see what we can do. If there are any questions, I'll certainly be glad to try to answer them this time along with Ms. Keefe. And as soon as we have some information, we'll send out something just to keep you kind of in the loop so you know what's happening before our next meeting where we anticipate to have another update. Thank you.
Any questions for him? Yes, Steve.
Yes, I see the letter here from the County Historical Building Commission. What kind of authority do they have, or what can they offer as incentives to this?
Well, my impression is that their commission has as equal or less funding than the city of Wildwood to put toward a project. Certainly as a county entity, hopefully their opinion will carry greater weight than a local preservation board. I'm not saying it's because we aren't influential, but just from that standpoint. I haven't explored the county's role. Obviously, the response I provided to the individual that provided the letter was, as soon as we have some direction, we hope that you'll be a participant in the discussions, and we'll see what that brings.
Well, it was a very positive letter. Very glad we got it from them. So hope they have some help.
Well, at this particular discussion or Zoom meeting, if there's anything we'll lead off besides introductions, it'll be that letter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a request.
Yes.
May we circle back to the African American history
Certainly.
item? Madam Chair, members of this commission, I believe I left this item just a little too soon because as noted, I hope to apply for a research grant, assuming we get property owners of consent, which would be due August 19th. And I believe that would be before any meeting of this commission, which means I need your endorsement, please, of this research grant application. And also in the event it's needed, authorization for a letter of support from your chair. Thank you.
Is there the similar breakdown of like 60-40, like 65?
I believe there's a match is appreciated but not required by the National Park Service grants.
Ed
Second.
and Alan has seconded. Any other discussion on it? Hey, Commissioner Borg, your vote, please. Thank you very much. And the other commissioners? Looks like you have the go ahead.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's good. Thank you so much. So is there anything else that anyone needs to bring before the commission this evening? Well, we've talked a lot tonight about getting things out in front of the public. I have a very good friend. She and her husband are bicyclists. I wish they could have gotten a hold of Paul before things went south there, because they would have really enjoyed doing some bicycling with him. But they often bicycle the Katy Trail. And she made the comment to me this week that the Katy Trail is not in very good condition at this point because of all the rains that we had. And she said they were wanting to ride, but they just knew that that wasn't the safest place to go. So she said she got out the points of interest map that I had given to her. And she said, we have now bicycled several of the trails on your map. Your map is wonderful. She says, yes, she said, I looked at it, but when we were actually using it, she said, you people are wonderful with what you have put together. And so that made me feel really good because, a lot of work did go into making that map. And, when you think about the ones that we started out with just a quadrant a year map, and then what we have now, it is such a professional document. It's really wonderful. And thanks to you all for the work that you did to be able to have this document to pass out to people. So it's good to know it's being used. So thank you all very much. Yes, Steve.
Okay. I would just like to add to that. I just got back from the Grand Canyon, and they have brochures and maps and very nicely done. And our map, although we don't have 25 of them, we've got one. The quality is there. It is excellent. It very well compares with the national park maps that they present. So plus they ask for $1 a piece donation for it. And we've been giving ours away. So but it's really an excellent map that we have.
Thanks goes out to the city council for allowing us to have these produced and give out to the people. And it's without your cooperation with us, it wouldn't have happened. So thank you very much for passing that along to the council.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for tonight? Then I declare our meeting adjourned. Well, I can't do that. I have to ask you.
I'll motion.
We have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
And there is a second. Does anyone want to stay longer? Commissioner Borg, your vote, please. Look at the smile. Did you see that? Right. Commissioner Redmond. All right, commissioners.
Thank you all very much.